Nothing better than a nice cup of coffee to start a video. How you doing, everybody? This is Jason's House of Fun and Video Games, bringing you today eBay Times and Buys Volume 3 Revisited. For once in a long, long time, probably, trying to think here. It happens maybe once a year. I'm actually shooting something in the daytime, so we don't necessarily need to do all this crazy stuff with lighting. It's great. Oh, and by the way, if you haven't realized what time of year it is, you like my shirt? Big box retailer exclusive. You're damn right. It's October, it's Halloween time. We're gonna get right into it. But before that, other than the few things that I have ordered and gotten recently, we're gonna go in depth to check to see their authenticity, to make sure we didn't get duped. Also, I'm going to throw in a few bonus things because I think that I haven't done an in-depth review, or at least to this extent, an in-depth review on some of the things I've gotten previously. And I think this is the perfect type of video to do that in. And it is that time of the year. It's October, so we're going to throw in some good Halloween movies. And we'll see if they're, one, authentic, two, what we asked for, because I remember, but I just don't always check, and that's the whole point of the series. And number three, the varying conditions and why I'm okay with the varying conditions of movies. And I actually prefer them not to be perfect. So let's get into the deep dive into my most recent buys and times from the eBay. Beatles rock. All right, and we are back. So the first thing we're going to look at is the most recent purchases, and then we will add that bonus content at the end. So this is going to be an interesting one, because if you know the channel and you've been following me for a while, you're going to know I already have this. So why would I buy things twice? Well, there's a lot of different reasons why we buy things twice. Usually, within any genre, things just get re-released. But with this, it's very simple. I had this along with this one when I was a young person. When I was probably in my very early teenage years. I found these at some local store that was in the mall. So, why? I like the packaging. I guess that's really it. I like the way that they look on the shelf. And I don't normally go for these things because it's not authentic, but at the same time, I've said many times before, along with this in the introduction of this video rather, that doesn't really bother me as much. And that the quality has to be there to an extent, but not to the extent of my action figures. So, this one is one that I've had before. I had them both, and this one, I don't know where it ended up. I'm going to put this aside for now. Now, the box, before I take it out, the box looks in pretty good shape. You got some dings here. I'm okay with that. Dings on VHSs, not complete rips, but most of them bring character. So, I'll take a look at the movies real quick. And I'll show the other one off just to take a quick peek on what mine have looked like over the years and compared to this. It could be a lot of different things. Remember, VHS tapes, one, can grow mold. So that's definitely something to keep an eye out for. This clearly doesn't have that issue. I actually have one that has mold, but it's not a horror one. And hopefully we'll do some sort of review on how I'm going to get that mold off. So, right there. Tape looks pretty good. I always inspect, not always, but I try to inspect every part of my purchases. It is very important so you get what you asked for. But this series was created on times that I didn't do that. Again, same thing. A little different with the coloration. You know, this is what happens over time. These things are very old. And again, no mold. Take a look at the tape. Tape looks pretty good. Not all these tapes are going to look great. They're going to look rough. They've been washed a lot of times, and that is the biggest advantage about having things on a disc or digital, is that you're not going to run into that problem and it'll affect the quality. But I actually don't mind the crackling of a VHS or you know, when the tracking has to be adjusted. I've learned to kind of enjoy that, and it brings me back to a different time. So this purchase was a good purchase, no issues. Now, let's take a look at the one that I have and see if there's any differences. Do you notice the difference right off the bat? Because I do. Now that could be for many different reasons. For cleaner picture, adjust tracking on VHS or VCR. Okay, cool. Now this one again looks really good. This is the one that I had, remember that. I prefer these type of labels over the other ones. Reason being, coloration, it just doesn't look that good after many, many years and many, many uses. So, looks pretty good. No mold on that, which I'd hope they wouldn't be, because I usually keep my VHSs in a good temperature setting. I mean, the cover art isn't, you know, mind-blowing by any means, but for whatever reason, like with the double DVDs or Blu-rays or even the double VHSs, I don't typically go after them because it doesn't interest me. But maybe it's the fire in the background. Maybe it's because they have the actual, what would be the VHS slipcover or theatrical posters right on the front. Not really sure, but I'm pumped to add it in. One more part of the collection is complete. Now, for the last one before we get into the bonus stuff, this is a game, and yeah, I'm kind of on a Sega CD fix here. This is a game I've kind of eyed for a long time, but I didn't want to pay a very high price for it. I've played it, once or twice on the Sega Genesis. I've never tried it on the Sega CD. I guess I just spoiled my surprise, but you're going to see it anyway. Eternal Champions. Here we go with another Sega CD game. This just recently came in, so this isn't looking at something far along in advance, so we're going to take a look at this one, as I haven't rated it yet, because I wanted to look at it with you. So, first things I see right off the list, or right off the bat, I should say rather, the manual looks pretty good. The case looks pretty good. Barely any scratches on this. Like, this was well taken care of. I want to try to just show this to you so you can see it without too much glare. This is a fighting game in the veins of Mortal Kombat, although very different. A lot of similarities in between it. The difference between this, the Genesis version, I think there might have been a Super Nintendo version, is there is... Okay, so let's just take a look at that. Take a look at it and read it together. We're going to get in class here, folks. Includes all 9 digital characters plus 4 new fighters and 11 hidden characters. So that's pretty cool. And I believe with those hidden characters comes different stages. So the added stage is obviously the CD quality sound and look. You're going to see a difference. There's the good old infamous FMVs. And yes, I have played this to see if it worked. It does in fact work, and it's a very difficult game. Although, with everything, practice makes perfect. So let's take a look at this right here. And I only popped it in for a very short period of time, just to make sure it worked right off the bat. Otherwise, this is my first look at it with you, in depth. Manual. That is definitely 100% an authentic manual. You could tell the very big difference. If you have any questions on that, maybe I'll link some of my other parts of this series and the vids that I have before this up below. And you could take a look at them to see what a very bad counterfeit reproduction manual looked like. This is authentic, and this thing is heavy. Look at the size of this manual. This is the manual of all manuals. 64 pages. Holy shit. I poked through this really quickly. I'm going to kind of show you. Nothing with the issues on this as well. The seller didn't indicate any issues with this, or the disc, or the game. If you look at my previous videos, as I keep mentioning, you will see a particular Sega CD game where I did have some issues with it that I didn't know about. So, this looks great. This is when manuals are manuals. It's got its own little send away card there, which is very important for some collectors. It's not super important to me. This kind of goes through the different button combinations for each fighter, except for the hidden ones, I believe. Well, the 4 additional characters that were added to the game, but it's a fun game. I've just got to get better at it, I guess. And this kind of turned me off when I played for the... Turned me off from buying it when I tried out the Sega Genesis version, but this is one that's actually gone up in value. Not necessarily only for its worth, because all games have kind of been like that, but also with the amount of money it is selling for. So I got this at a really good buy, and I'm going to tell you about that in a minute. But this thing's heavy. The door hinge on it looks pretty well. As you can see, like my other one, that doesn't have a loose one. Now here comes the moment of truth. Looking at this first glance, as I've looked at many copies on the internet to be able to come to a conclusion that this is in fact an authentic disc. And again, if this was not an authentic disc, this would be very different. There's your difference right there. Something definitely to look out for, especially if you're not told about it in advance. So I'm very pleased with this purchase, and I couldn't have asked for a better description. Now, the funny story about this purchase, very simple. I've been watching it for a while, like I said. This was on a bidding war between a couple of folks. I think it was like 4 or 5 folks. 6 days, which is typically the amount of time that most sellers will put it on there. I just watched it for 6 days, meaning that I clicked the button, kept an eye on it. I wasn't openly bidding against it. I happened to be at a moment in time when my phone went off. It doesn't always, and that's why it's very dangerous to not keep an eye on these. You're going to lose out. My phone told me it was less than a minute away. That is when you go to attack. Now, unfortunately, when it comes to that, you may have somebody that put their highest bid to be extremely high because they really want something. Or you might have somebody that didn't put such a high bid because they're like, if I lose it, whatever. And you actually get it for a good price. That's what you're looking for. A lot of games people will put heavy reserves for so that no matter what, if you put in, like, say, for example, for this one, I put in 30. I think it was 35. So I put in, no, it was 30. I put in 30, and then during that minute, I actually did this right at the last 5 seconds I put in my bid. Reason being, the other folks that are trying to get this do not have the correct time to react, but at the same time, remember, if their reserve is high, you're not going to get it unless you put in the correct amount. So what I put in, I looked at it, I was like, I don't think somebody is going to go above $40. So I will put my reserve at 40 against the 35 that it's already at. In the 5 seconds, it climbed from 35, 36, 37. You got the spinny thing, which was, you know, the auction being called off and completed. I ended up being the highest bidder, won it at 37. This game is currently going for about $60. Here we go. Nightmare on Elm Street on VHS. This was a purchase I made well over a year or 2 ago at this point. Decent condition. I'm okay with it looking like that. Take out the tape. Ah, there it is. Non-stick tape. I don't see any serious color. I see a little coloration, but not mold, which is good. And again, seems pretty good. Continuing on. Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2. Box looked pretty good on this one. I don't know how I feel about this sticker, but it is what it is. It brings character to it. This must have been an ex-rental at one point, I could tell. And the seller was very honest about this, so. And this one is probably the roughest one, and I might want to get an upgrade to this eventually. But again, it brings character. It came as a set. These are hard to find individually. It's better to go after them as a set as long as you can get with a good agreement with the seller. And he was very honest, or she or whoever was very honest about this. This was the rough one. It does have some big gashes on it, everything like that. But again, if I'm buying in bulk and it's good for a shelving display case and to watch every once in a while, it's okay. Such a great cover art though these movies have. And there we go. There's the label. The label looks pretty good though overall. And the tape looks pretty good as well. Here we go right here. Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4. Condition on this one is pretty good. Again, some issues here, but it brings character to the VHS. Let's take a look at this one. This one doesn't appear to have any issues. Again, it has that label thing on there. A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5, The Dream Child. Probably my least favorite of all. And this one actually is in pretty good condition as well. Again, you'll see some minor details. Please be kind and rewind. Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare. Just look at that. Even this cover art, which isn't the best, it's still awesome. This movie was actually made in 3D. And we have the paper there, but it looks pretty good for its age. Not too bad. Although many people have different opinions on it. I actually like this. And it definitely gets into a different world. I think it was a movie that was very ahead of its time. It is Wes Craven's New Nightmare. This is the final one that Wes Craven really had anything to do with. So, take a look at this. And that's what happens with these over time. The glue, just like on any label, falls off. And that is what's going to happen. And that's okay. It's actually staying on there pretty good, surprisingly. Again, no issues that I see with mold. The tape looks like it's in pretty good condition, so. All right. Well, there's your bonus segment. Show you this shirt in more detail. I think it's awesome. Again, I got it from a big box retailer. First of all, let me thank the now 123 awesome, amazing folks out there who have subscribed to the House of Fun and Video Games, who have hit the bell, who jump in the comments. We get into great conversations. And if you haven't already subscribed, make sure you do that as well. If you have any other questions, concerns, drop them in the comments section down below, suggestions, whatever it may be. Time to watch some VHSs, I think.